he was on the internet, I couldn't be on the internet, and he was, on his Xbox. I have vivid memories of our father holding his Xbox over the pool in the backyard saying, Elliot, I will drop it.
This is Creative Disruption, the intersection where entertainment, data, and creativity meet. Here's your hosts, Ricky Ray Butler and Derral Eves.
All right, welcome back to the Creative Disruption podcast, where we're always talking about the things that are disrupting the industry and the people that are actually doing it. And today I'm joined here with my friend, Ricky Ray Butler. You are my friend, aren't you?
Hey, good to be here. How are you doing?
Dude, I am having actually a pretty good day. I think when you wake up in the morning and you actually enjoy what you do, it's great. It's great to be alive. We were actually posting some videos on YouTube and watching analytics and just kind of deep diving on, what things are, happening, just new things that are happening. And, I don't know. I just love what I do. Yeah. What about you?
That's great. You know what? Things are busy. What's interesting as a result of, COVID-19 and quarantine, we're seeing a different dynamic of growth. Like we're seeing, more new business now than ever before. We had a huge record-breaking first half of the year, and already in the second half, the first month we already just matched the amount of new business that we got from the first half. So it's getting crazy. We're now, figuring out how to scale this growth being remote from each other. And so it's been a lot of fun for someone that likes change and likes to, problem solve. It's been a unique, but, good experience to be in, and feel extremely fortunate that we are in this situation when there's so many other people when it comes to the recession and all the trials and challenges that are out there that are struggling. I mean, I think, people in the creator space and the influencer industry and entertainment, especially new media entertainment, we're all very lucky.
We really are. I look at too, it's like there are so many people that, even had the fear of losing their job or have lost their job. And I know that there's been a huge influx of people saying, hey, maybe we need to rethink the 9 to 5. Maybe we need to rethink the way that we do business. And I think that's where, I'm grateful for a lot of people that decided not to go back into the 9 to 5 and they actually found ways to make money online. I think that's where it's really interesting, and I think that this new media, new digital, it's really interesting because the average Joe can actually make money, whether he or she just figures out a niche and starts to develop an audience and creates value through content. And it's just amazing time to be alive for sure.
I don't have a stat that supports this, but there are definitely, I think is more people out there trying to create content and audiences now than ever before. There's definitely higher engagement and higher views, but I think there's also a big growth of content creators right now because in a lot of situations, they're forced to start to innovate. And so you look at, the mainstream celebrities, musicians and actors, they're all looking at what the YouTubers are doing and what the Instagram and TikTokers are doing. And they're starting to copy it and realize, oh, now that I can't go on tour or I can't, film, I should start creating content. And so who slowed down, but, John Krasinski, like what he did, it was funny when late night and day part, all these different TV shows were trying to create content and were trying to do things with YouTube, but they were really struggling. You have John Krasinski coming in and doing, YouTube 2.0 stuff from tactics and editing and filming that YouTubers used to do like 10 years ago, like the old school Phil DeFranco stuff and literally killed it. And we're seeing that across the board now where, you have Post Malone doing a live stream, playing Nirvana. You have, all these different creators creating and realizing, okay, in this virtual world that we're in, I cannot rely on just my, booking agents. I can't just rely on, going out and selling myself. I have to literally create and innovate, not just do a trade of music or acting, but I actually need to now become a producer and create content.
I love that. And I think the biggest disruption just in the last, 15 years or so was the invention of the iPhone and Android devices that can now capture 4K footage, like amazing quality audio and video, and is able to pull people in. And it gives the power to individuals that they can create or even capture the moments that are happening. I mean, I look at all the stuff that is happening in the world, and if this would have happened, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, it would have been swept under the rug. Nobody would have read it, maybe as a headline or whatever. But now they just pull out their phone and they have access, and whether they're live streaming or content, they're right there. And I look at it, and you're looking at who's in the news right now is Apple. And it's interesting, they're in an antitrust issue. And why I find this fascinating is because even though that it's created freedom to create, they're still trying to, squeeze every little dollar out of it. And, you have a pretty aggressive fight right now going on between Apple and Epic, which I'm literally just a few miles away from the headquarters of Epic Games. And, and how disruptive Epic's been. And realizing that, Apple is taking 30% of every little transaction that ever occurs, big or small, that's going through that platform. And you can't, if you want to have your app on it, you have to go with Apple and you have to pay that 30%. If not,
they have just opened the gateway for competition.
Yeah.
They were killing it, and they still are, and they're doing a great job. But once you make it so really big publishers or big companies are negatively affected that have a huge, following and their own movement and culture that gets frustrated with your process, you either need to innovate or you're going to be opening up the doorway of a lot of people getting behind the person that you're going against. So there's going to be other marketplaces and other stores that are going to start innovating.
Well, let me tell you the exact thing for me, because I love audiobooks. I consume them. I probably go through 170 a year. I mean, I'm going through a lot of content, right? Mm-hmm. And what always would just upset me is when I'd open up the Audible app on the iPhone and I couldn't go and select new credit choices. I would just get so frustrated. And then guess what? Lo and behold, just a couple months ago, you now can do that. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Is there a backdoor deal that Apple's doing with Amazon? And what does that even look like? And then what happens to the other guy? Because we actually, you and I, we actually have an app that's on the App Store, and we're having to pay a pretty hefty premium, just for things that we're giving out for free. I mean, it's crazy, and it's like, I think at the end of the day, yes, it's Apple's technology, it's Apple's way of doing things, but there needs to be another way to install apps and have it be active on your device, or what's going on with it? I mean, seriously.
Well, we talk about this in almost every episode where we talk about decentralization and how we've seen that with content. We're going to be seeing it not just with content platforms, but I think with all platforms and with all technology. And there's just such a demand for media, and there's also a demand for people wanting it their way. And whoever is going to be the one listening, not to just their profits, but listening to the audiences out there and the consumers out there. And if there's something that needs to change, it will change. I mean, just how YouTube changed all of television.
Yep.
YouTube was not, TV was not giving love to gaming. There were no gaming programs. The first gaming programs happened on YouTube. And it's the same with beauty as well. If consumers want something, they're going to get it.
Well, my issue is this. It's like, if you don't play ball, then we're pulling off your app. And so I know, because I actually had Fortnite on my phone, and they couldn't update it. They literally took them off the App Store and everything that was there because, Epic had an issue with that 30%. And yeah, you can pass it on to the customer, but they're like, why? Why, if they're doing all this other stuff, do we need to actually do that? And I don't know. I do think from a moral standpoint, I'm like, okay, let's not really try to control everything in the government, but we can't have, a lockdown society on this type of thing, even though that, yeah, we can go to Android and we can go to other places like that. But I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. It's just like, I think at the end of the day, if you're facilitating the sale to take a 30% cut that's pretty steep. I don't care who you
Yeah,
are.
it's steep. I love the idea of businesses being able to make their decisions if, they own the technology, as long as there's nothing like crazy shady happening, of course. But really, Derral, I think the answer is who's going to innovate.
Yep.
And you can maybe have a monopoly in a certain aspect, but I personally think we're coming to a new world where monopolies are not going to be as prevalent. Things are going to.
Well, I love the open source model because it's like, and maybe that's where Android's going to start overtaking some of the market share of Apple. Because now even though I am like the biggest Apple fanboy, I had literally bought a Macintosh computer every year that it came out, whatever it is, I would always buy it. I'm super loyal, but now I'm starting thinking, you know what? Even if I can't get the stuff that I want to do on it, that I had before, just because of this dispute, and I don't necessarily agree with it, do I go a different source? And I am considering that. And I know too, I think the big thing for me is there's all these content creators that they love the Apple ecosystem, right? And they would actually play Fortnite on their computer, and yet it got kicked out of the Apple store because of that stuff. And now they're like, well, what do I do? I mean, here I have to disrupt my content that's on YouTube, and I have to go get a PC now just to run it.
Well, all those people that send you the green text messages are all laughing in your face now.
Yeah, that pretty much.
Everyone that doesn't have Apple. Well, I've decided a long time ago, and it's not because I'm paranoid, but I've decided a long time ago that I am not going to depend on any specific brand or technology for all my needs.
Well, but you have the Palm Pilot still, right? Oh, I thought you had a Palm.
No. No, it was a BlackBerry. Just joking.
Oh, that's right.
No. I love the iPhone, but I have a PC, and I've been able to. I've seen that with PC or with like Surface. I can get better performance than I can from Mac or Apple. Yeah. I know that's going to piss off a lot of Apple enthusiasts and nerds out there, but what it comes down to is I don't want to have to depend on any brand, because if anything shuts down, it all shuts down.
I agree.
And so I like to diversify the technology that I'm using.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, in these coming weeks and months. But I think that at the end of the day, it's like, Apple has the right to do it. Government has the right to regulate it. We're going to see what happens. But what happened with Amazon? Because you can literally do that now. And if that door opened, you need to make it open for other people, or there needs to be certain types of things that's disclosed for me, especially when you're taking public money.
I love hearing stories like this where there's two giants dealing with this conflict, because something positive, or hopefully positive, will come. Even if it gets stressful for a little bit, something positive will come as a result of it. Because you now have two sides with resources battling it out, and that might inspire some innovation in the future. I think it would be good. I was talking earlier about how YouTube was able to create new industries of content, because they've allowed the people to choose what they want to watch, and so you have gaming, you have beauty, but we have someone today that is a rock star, a game changer, a pioneer when it comes to influencer marketing, representation.
I'm really excited about this one too, because if there's one industry that's disrupting the world, is gaming. Like 100%. Like gaming is definitely there.
100%. So we have the CEO of Click Management, Grace Watkins, on with us today. Grace is also a YouTuber. She has a strong, social following of millions of people, and also a very successful podcast. But Grace, she also, while she's running a YouTube creator career, she manages over 65% of all the gaming views from Australia. And so she's
so that's really, just literally laser beam. That's it.
Well, it's laser beam and a good variety of others. And my team loves working with Grace and her team. They feel like they're some of the best managers, not just compared to US or Hollywood, agencies, but when it comes to the entire planet. They're some of the most reasonable and easy to work with, and also very data driven in when they're representing their talent. And so Grace, we love to have someone like you on this podcast. you really have been a mover and a shaker, and you've really elevated the gaming scene for Australia, which is amazing.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. That was a very flattering intro. I'm really glad to be here, and yeah, thank you.
So, Grace, we have a lot to talk about, and I know, you and Derral were geeking out earlier talking about Fall Guys and like other games that we might want to discuss. We just got done discussing Epic and Fortnite and Apple. Maybe stuff that's not as controversial, but Grace, I would love to hear just from you, your background and like what inspired you, to become a creator and to start, Click Management, and give us kind of like, an idea of like what inspired you and how you made it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely clarify. I'm really not a creator. Like I do my podcast with my brother, Muselk, but really it's the management stuff that's keeping me pretty busy at the moment. But it certainly wasn't
that. Then the Click YouTube channel.
Yeah, I mean, we just produced the Click YouTube channel, so I'm certainly not a talent myself, which I think is probably a good thing for everyone. But I mean, YouTube and management certainly wasn't something that was a plan for me. I was a pretty, academic kid at school, and went into university and studied accounting and law, and did that, spent 5 years at university, got a law degree. And I really thought that I was going to go down the corporate path. And I did a few internships in New York with private equity firms and stuff, and ended up taking a graduate job at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. So was working in assurance there for a couple of years, and really thought that was the path that I was going to take. But I think at the same time, I was seeing my brother is a very big gaming creator, Elliot Muselk, as I said earlier, and it was around that time when he was starting his YouTube career. And I think something that had always been in the back of my mind for me was I was really fascinated by the entertainment industry. I thought that was super interesting. It seemed exciting and fast-paced, and and in a really influential, impactful industry in the world. But I was never particularly interested in, like being an actress or a talent myself. I was always fascinated by the people behind the scenes, and who were the people that were, making all of these big moves happen. That, the end consumer only sees the end product, but who are all the people that are actually sort of pulling the strings in the background? And that always really interested me. So when my brother Elliot was getting into his YouTube career and starting that off, I was certainly really inspired by his drive and how motivated he was by what he was doing. And he was just completely consumed by content creation, and was doing it 24 hours a day, wouldn't sleep, barely was eating, which is certainly not the healthiest thing. But I think it was certainly inspiring to see that he had that much hunger for what he was doing. And I felt as though, while I actually really loved my job at PwC and I enjoyed it, it wasn't the kind of thing that I was thinking about wanting to do at 11 p.m. at night, or couldn't wait to get up in the next morning and get started. And as he grew, he was noticing more of an interest from brands wanting to get into the space and understanding the value that creators held, and the value that they held in being able to connect with an audience that was oftentimes young and quite difficult to reach through traditional advertising. And also the fact that there were some incredibly talented young creators that perhaps didn't have the vision for themselves on how they were able to make this a diversified career and really build it into something meaningful. And so that was, I think, when we started talking about what it would be like to create a management agency that really catered to that. And gaming was a vertical that I think we found to be a little bit misunderstood, not widely represented, and something that we saw a huge amount of growth potential in. And that was basically how Click was born. And that was 3.5 years ago now, and haven't really looked back since then. So, yeah.
And you're like one of the top fastest growing companies, like the top 50 fastest growing companies in Australia last year, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we were. Yeah, which is very, very cool. And I think it was it was really great to be part of that, because I think a lot of people still look at YouTube and YouTube related industries as sort of like a fun project that kids are doing on the side, and don't understand how much of an important part of the entertainment industry it is, and that it's certainly that it's going to become over the next 5 to 10 years. And so I think one of the goals that I really have through the work that we're doing is to help, ensure that people understand how reputable this industry is, and how quickly it's growing, and how significant it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I'm glad that you guys have been, cracking the nut of management with creators that are doing gaming. I think for a lot of the management and agency worlds, adjusting and evolving with the creator community and influencers, it's been a big challenge. But I think it's especially been a big challenge with gaming, because it is such a new industry in a lot of ways when it comes to creating content around it. And what we've seen is there's a lot of innovation that's happened when it comes to representation in the last literally 2 to 3 years, that have made it easier for companies like ours, which do a lot of work with game companies, as well as with other Fortune 500 companies that want to get into gaming.
Yeah, absolutely. I think gaming and representation and that sort of thing, it's probably not the kind of job to get into if you want something super predictable and stable. But I think if you're interested in an industry that moves really rapidly, and that you're able to make fast changes in, then I think it's amazing. But certainly the changes that gaming's experienced over the last 2 to 3 years has been nothing short of insane. I mean, it's difficult to believe that barely 2 years ago did Fortnite even exist. And now it's obviously completely changed the gaming industry in its entirety. And Epic itself is about to change, I think, the wider tech and entertainment industry completely with what they're doing with Apple. And so it's amazing. And from a creative perspective as well, a lot of the creators that we work with now, even 3 years ago, hadn't uploaded their first video, or certainly hadn't experienced their rapid growth that a lot of them found through games like Fortnite. So I think it's super exciting to be part of something that's moving really rapidly. And I think it's exciting because if you're someone young and wanting to get into the entertainment industry, that can be quite a challenging prospect if you were looking to get into, say, movies or music, where there are these really established hierarchies and you're going up against people that have 30, 40 years of experience. Whereas I think in gaming, if you come in hungry and wanting to, take it with both hands, you can really develop a lot of subject matter expertise in just a few years.
I really love the gaming industry. I don't think the average person out there really understands the magnitude of the gaming industry. I don't think that they really comprehend how much money is actually there that's generated and how big the audience really is. They're like, oh, it's just a video game, whatever. It's not anything big. And just to give everyone context, it's like I'm sitting in the office of one of the biggest YouTube creators on the freaking planet. He'll pull 30, 40 million video views, when he releases a video on a single video. And, he's averaged over the course of his YouTube channel, he has quite a few videos out there, but over 10 million, and for years. And what's crazy is, he's pulling in 500 million video views a month on one channel. In May, we actually started another channel. It's called Mr. Beast Gaming. And just without even pushing to the main audience or anything, we're almost 8 million subscribers and getting a ton of views. Well, brand deals started to come in, and he's getting offers that are bigger on his gaming channel than is on his main channel, where he gets like 4x more video views. But it's all about the industry and who's paying the dollars that's behind it and what the true potential really is. And so, Grace, would you mind just giving the essence of I know most of our listeners and our viewers are very astute, they understand the data, but could you just explain how big the industry is from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I was reading last week was that gaming revenues exceeded both the movie and music industries combined last year. So it's certainly incredibly massive, and the viewership is just off the charts. And I think it's something where I feel like there's still quite an education piece to happen with a lot of the market in terms of how significant gaming is as an entertainment vertical. I feel like there's kind of this misconception, or when you talk about gaming, you're thinking about like teenage boys sitting in their underwear in their basement at home in the dark, like playing Call of Duty or something. And I think while there's certainly that exists, I feel like now I see really gaming becoming more of a pop culture in the same way that skating has a pop culture phenomenon, or
right.
Industries like that, where people are understanding that gaming is not just something that you should look at in a silo. And certainly while a lot of the creators that I work with, gaming's their primary content, and perhaps they're doing brand deals where they're promoting other games, people are understanding more and more that people don't just care about these people because of the games that they play. They're invested in what are the clothes you're wearing, what are the music you're listening to, what's the food you're eating, who are the friends that you have, and how are you interacting with them both on your in-game and off-game. And I think that's where, as well, because the gaming viewership is so strong and the average view duration of when someone watches gaming content is quite extended, because of there's platforms like streaming, which is really endemic in gaming culture. The average stream duration of some of the creators I represent is like 30 or 40 minutes per viewer. It's really significant. And so if you're watching someone on a regular basis, these guys are uploading daily content most of the time, and they have this really solid, consistent audience that keeps coming back more and more, they build a huge level of trust with their audience. And their audience doesn't just know the game that they're playing, but they know the friends that they're playing with, what they're eating on stream, the kind of music that they like to play in the background. And they become, I think they really develop this almost friendship relationship where there's truly a level of trust. Mm-hmm. And so if you can imagine, like Derral, if Ricky recommended you something, you would trust him because you know him, and you know
you don't know me very well, man.
Well, but you know the things that he likes.
No,
you might understand that you have that shared value system.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think with creators, that's what really exists that I find is really compelling.
Daryl's really into gymnastics, and I'm just not into that.
It is true. There is some truth to it. Like parkour is so cool. So anyway.
One thing, Grace, what was interesting is you talked a lot about, like the loyalty of the audiences and the community. And I think this is something that brands and those that want to work with gaming, they need to remember that one word, and that's community. A lot of times people overthink it. They think, oh, esports, or we got to go into gaming and competitions, or, oh, what's happening with VR? How can we leverage VR? And you're looking beyond the mark at that point. The truth is, what makes gaming so special today is that it has one of the biggest communities ever. And
totally.
It's the fastest growing community. I mean, I've advised dozens and dozens of gaming companies in the past years and currently. And I'm starting to see a much bigger trend now where gaming companies are coming and saying, look, I have this title and this title over here. We want to figure out how to get Gen Z to play our games. All our gamers are men that are 30 plus. We want a younger audience now. How do we do that? And so it's one of those things where I think it's kind of like really opening up, marketers' minds on, how to really look at marketing differently. It's not about just sponsoring an esporting event. It's about working with the creator, where you can be a part of their content. You can empower them to create content that their audience is going to enjoy. It's not about putting on a VR set and like doing something very innovative and hoping it gets some viral views. It's about finding a community that is going to appreciate someone playing VR.
So totally. I think it's not just about a buzzword. And I think that's where I think like gaming or even not gaming, but I feel like esports has become this huge buzzword over the last 24 months. And you see a heap of brands that have clearly heard this buzzword and they're like, okay, we need esports, like quick, how can we attach ourselves to esports? And they're not actually thinking about how am I thinking this through properly, or how am I going to reach an audience that actually, gives a crap about me. which is why I'm a little skeptical on esports, but separate topic.
yeah. Well, it's like work with 20 creators that have your target demographic, that collectively are going to be bigger than any esporting competition out there. And you can do it basis.
I think it comes back down. They're just lazy, and I'll just say it because you guys won't. But the reason why
we can't say that. Me and Grace.
I know you can't, but I can. Because what's going on is like, oh, it's trending. Let's just do it. This is the easiest way for us to spend our money, instead of saying, look, if we're really going to change the way that we actually reach our potential customer, what we need to do is look for the most value out there, right? And so the most disruptive industry out there is gaming. And I truly do believe this because, I spent hours upon hours upon hours on a Super Nintendo trying to pass every level. And it's like, when you go watch a movie, you can watch it once and you're like, okay, that's pretty good. You might watch it 2 or 3 times, but a video game, you're going to play that hours upon hours every day of your life. It's going to become a routine. You're going to try to talk to your friends how to pass different levels. Then you're going to talk about secret, Easter eggs that are in the video. And then you're going to talk about all the little cool things that are going on. And at the end of the day, that's that subculture that exists. It just, here you have my generation, you have generation, X, that's basically been eat, drinking, sleeping, gaming. When they go home, they want to unwind. What's the best way to unwind? Boom, they put a headset on and start playing. And that's the key of it. And then 2, you have this new subset of the generations. So you have Millennials and Gen Z. Now, Gen Z, I find more fascinating of how they consume, because now they're more integrated in the community where they're looking. I got 5 kids and all of them watch Laserbeam, like every single one. They start laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing about? And, they're just like, oh, he said this or whatever. And it's not necessarily about the game. The game's what connects them with the creator, but it's like the entertainment that's actually coming from that game, they're like, oh, did you see that, what he did here? Or that was really funny there. Or, he did this with that or whatever. But then it's like they go and talk about that at school with their friends. And then they're like, oh, let's go ahead and play. And then what binds them back together is that game. And that's why I think 100% the gamification in Epic Games, Fortnite, was brilliant. To be a part of the club, there always had that shop going and you had to get that latest skin. I think that transformed the gaming industry even further, where you had all this new subset of content coming into these content creators' hands, and they want to be a part of it. They want to have a new skin. It's like right now, there's a new game that I think is amazing. It's called Fall Guys. My kids stopped playing Fortnite. They're just playing Fall Guys now. They might sneak in a game or 2 on Fortnite, but they love Fall Guys. And there are content creators right now that are going to spend $250,000 to have a virtual skin. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, from my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, we should talk about the Tap Man and all that, controversy as well around it.
Yeah. But I think just to touch on what you were saying there, Derral, I totally agree. I feel like Epic really redefined what it meant to be a developer in the space. And I feel like Epic was probably one of the first to really, really recognize the value that their creator community had in making a game and the longevity of the game, and some of the things that they implemented around creator codes or regular updates, weekly updates, the tournaments that they were putting on, the events that they were putting on, that didn't even have anything to do with competitive play. I think they really, really understood the value of their creator community. And now I feel like what Fall Guys is doing is sort of an iteration of that. Yeah.
Well, and what I find fascinating too is just like, okay, digital skins and changing the landscape is like you're adding more depth to the game, and some people are going to hate it and they're going to talk about it, and some people are going to love it and they're going to talk about it. And then when you use a skin or you do a partnership with Marvel that you're able to be Iron Man in it or Captain America or whatever, they're going to talk about it. And then it's just also creating all this other ancillary content that people are going to talk about it. And if it's on top of mind, regardless if it's free, they're going to want to buy those things, which is an in-app purchase, which comes back to that little Apple issue that most people go there.
We were talking, you were talking about earlier, it's a good thing for people to, play and, unwind. But as a result of like quarantine, it's a place for me to connect with people that I don't really have time to connect with otherwise. And something that just happened just a couple of weeks ago that was really fun for me is I have a 4-year-old daughter, and we have a lot in common. And for the first time, I played with some other friends that also have kids, and with my daughter, we played Minecraft.
Yep.
And I mean, something came to my mind that I've thought of before, but didn't really put two and two together. Like, in a way, we talk about gaming as being like the future of like film or future of entertainment. In a way, it's kind of like bringing entertainment with social together.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Which is think because you like watching it, but you also like to interact and play it. But for my daughter, it was just a totally different experience for her because this is her first time doing it, and it was amazing that she could be on her headphones and microphone and connect with other people, and it was one of the most enjoyable things that she's done.
Yeah, I think this year has probably really put gaming at the forefront of a lot of people's minds that perhaps weren't thinking about it before, because obviously as everyone's at home more and homes are becoming the entertainment centers of people's lives, the importance of how people's entertainment and social media is all interacting is just becoming more and more important. And I think to touch on Epic again, I think that's something where you can see that Epic is really moving in that direction. And I believe Tim Sweeney did a tweet late last year where someone asked him, do you see Epic as a social media platform? And he said, not yet, but ask me again in 12 months. And I think what my experience has been working with them is that they were noticing more and more that there were kids that were playing Fortnite, yes, but also just logging on and hanging out in the lobby to talk with their friends. And it was a way where they're not using Discord, they're not using like a Skype or anything else. It was like they were literally going on Fortnite to hang out with people. And I think what Epic is doing now with in-game concerts, like what they did with Travis Scott and what they're doing with creative modes in the game and that sort of thing, they're clearly, I think, setting sort of the base for making Fortnite not just a battle royale game, but really a universe where people can go and do a whole heap of things.
And I would 100% agree, because it's like the creative mode in Fortnite is so cool, and you can do so many different things. But what I always look for is like patterns. I like to see, okay, patterns, what's going on, what we're going to anticipate. And when Epic bought House Party, I'm like, okay, something's going on here, and knowing Epic, just I have a little bit of history with them, but it's just like when you actually understand it's a positioning play of understanding technology or inquiring people, it's going to be integrated. And I do agree. I remember that tweet and I go, oh, this is going to be interesting, because that was about the same time that the CEO of Netflix says, we don't view YouTube as a competitor. We fear Fortnite, and it's like, that's true, because those younger eyeballs, are definitely loving to engage in a community. And some of them don't even go on YouTube anymore. And I see even a day that there will be partnerships that YouTube will have to go into a video game so people can access videos. I know that seems really ridiculous, but I mean, we're not talking VR either. It's just like, here's a way that you can get into that ecosystem. I see that happening just because, I think these little sub communities like Minecraft and Roblox and, Fortnite are going to be the social platforms that will connect people. And if you want to get those eyeballs, you're going to need to figure out a different way to do it.
Absolutely. Although I do really think the creator community and creators that are creating gaming content on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook are totally endemic to the gaming culture as well. And I think I believe there was a stat I was reading where 90% of people that play games also watch gaming content on YouTube. And for me, I think that's where the value of working with creators and their ability to convey value and build an audience and build a community just really shines through.
Yeah, so that's a good point, because if anything, I would say YouTube and like Twitch, they're making gaming much bigger than it ever was. And I think it's going to continue to do that. And it'll be interesting to see if there is a game that becomes so mainstream where it kind of reverses that process, where you do go in that game and then you find, other content, or maybe they're more entwined.
I don't see Minecraft too far away from that. I don't see Roblox. I mean, they're really getting close to those things.
Well, I feel validated. Let me tell you why. When I over 12 years ago, when I was just I was working with creators, and I've been working with creators for a good 15 years, since the MySpace days, or when a creator was someone, or an influencer was someone that had over 500 followers on Facebook. But at that time, I was hitting up a lot of the top gaming companies and trying to do integrations within those companies, where I was saying, hey, let's put like a pizza company in this cave so people can go in there, order a pizza, and then keep playing their video game. And it was a little ahead of its time when I was trying to pitch that. And people were like, do you realize the red tape we have to go through to make that happen? And you're gonna ruin our game with a brand. But looking back, with what you're saying, Derral, that was really small thinking compared to, what you're saying of like Minecraft that has this huge, enormous community, where we stopped talking about Minecraft in the last 3 to 4 years. But the truth was, it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger year over year. And it was one of those things that was just more adopted by our culture. And now, a lot of these creators, like Mr. Beast, gaming, and like Press and Plays, saw a resurgence of growth and building community because they started playing Minecraft and building a very strong audience as a result of it. It kind of went quiet, or not quiet, but it wasn't given as much of the spotlight as like an Epic Games or like a Fortnite, when really it was way bigger.
Well, but that was because it was the buzz, right? And so Fortnite was very disruptive. They had the buzz, new content creators would play it. And this is where Grace would agree with me for sure. But it's like when you get people that command an audience, that can actually entertain an audience, not from their gameplay, but from their personality, then it's like they're going to just connect with that. And then it's more top of mind, right? And so that's where it's interesting, because like I've seen some of these creators play games and they're not that good. Like some of them are really bad, but it's like,
but they entertain.
They're very entertaining. Yeah. I don't know if they're bad because they want to be entertaining or what. I mean, I don't know.
I think it's a mix, but I think there are some gaming creators that are undoubtedly brilliant at the game, and I think anyone that's playing the amount of hours that these guys are playing is probably fairly good, or better than the average after school player. But absolutely, I mean, Laserbeam, who's one of the biggest gaming creators in the world, who I work with, he wouldn't mind me saying he's not great at gaming.
No, I would think concur with that. Lannon's not very he's funny.
But I think he's compelling, and like you watch him and you're having a good time, and you've got a smile on your face when you're watching him, because you can tell he's kind of having a good time too. And it's something that we've had a number of conversations about over the year, where it's a common concern where it's like, am I becoming too reliant on one game? Are people only watching me because I play Fortnite? But I think the biggest challenge and the creators that are doing it best are the ones where people are watching them not because of the game they're playing, but because of their personality, because they're compelling. And Lannon could play any game and people would watch it because it's not about the game with him. Yeah.
I would watch him read the phone book, but do they even make phone books anymore? But it's like,
there are creators now, and I'm not going to say any names. I don't think it happens as much, but there was an early on a gaming creator that wanted to scale as quickly as possible and get as big as quickly as possible as well, where he just wanted more and more content they could send out there. So what happened is he actually had people playing the game for him, and then he just do voiceover, on that game. Now, I don't think that does not happen as much now, and it didn't ever really happen that much in the past either. But there's a couple of people that I know that did that, both here in the U.S. as well as in other countries like in APAC, where I don't think the community would really like to find out that was something that was being done. However, they knew what they were good at. They realized that they weren't as good at gaming to the point where they couldn't finish a game. And so they just had someone else do that part, and they just started doing voiceover over the gaming. Have you seen any of that?
And That's creative. Like props for the hustle, but
though.
I don't think I would know. I don't think I work with any creators that would feel comfortable doing that, because I think most of the creators that are really, really successful understand that so much of why they're successful is because of their authenticity with their community and their viewership. And as soon as you start compromising that, you really, you start testing your relationship. And so I think that's why the creators I work with that I think are best are the ones that have a huge amount of integrity in the content that they create, and they're picky about what they'll recommend to their audience, because they understand, I think, that because of all the good things about content creation and gaming in particular, where they've got long viewership times and high engagement, also mean that they've built a high level of trust. And I think trust arrives on foot and departs on horseback, as my dad always used to say. So they have to be careful with that.
I agree with that 100%. And, when I found out, I wasn't supposed to find out. But something that comes with it, especially with like this whole Fortnite craze or Fall Guys craze, there's clout that comes with it. Yes, it's going to be entertaining, but if you can have some wins or do something creatively while you're playing the game, there's a lot of clout that comes with that. And there's a good chance that people who watch you are going to want to be playing the game that you're playing. And it's a good way of, feeling that you're connecting with someone if you're both really playing the game. So Grace, what are some of, your thoughts on the future of the industry? Like, what do you think is going to happen next in gaming?
I think it's going to continue to grow and grow. I think more people it will develop a much stronger casual audience over the next few years. And I think from a brands and sponsorship perspective, I think more and more brands are understanding, as I said, the value. And I think that's just on an upwards trajectory. And certainly what I've seen over the last 3 years, the type of brands that are interested in getting into the space as well, previously were very endemic to the space. And you'd obviously see a lot of developers and publishers and peripheral brands like headset brands or microphone brands and that sort of thing really getting into the space. But, you see more and more these collaborations with musicians, like Epic doing the concert with Travis Scott, and fast food brands getting into the space, like Ninja doing an Uber Eats partnership and that sort of thing, and apparel sponsorships. And I think the understanding of gaming and gaming creators will be considered far less niche. Not that I think it's niche now, but I think there's still a public perception that perhaps it is. And I think that will absolutely change over the next few years.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is, still some of a public perception there, but I think it's those walls are breaking down really quickly. We're working with a lot of companies, from CPG brands, to electronics, as well as fitness companies, that are all realizing, okay, this is a community that's really relevant to what we're providing, or what or the service that we provide, or the product that we're selling. We need to communicate with them in a way that they want to be communicated with. And we talked about it in another podcast, where in a way, kind of like how you have to be culturally sensitive when you go to a different, geographic area or a different country, you need to be, culturally sensitive when you're going into gaming.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of mistakes really fast on how you approach it. And you want to make sure that, first of all, you're going in there in a way that is empowering, that empowers authenticity and, the consistent programming that is there, but also going in the way that is very relevant. What are some brands that you've liked working with outside of the gaming brands?
Oh, I think, put me on the spot there. I think we did some work with KFC last year, and I was really, really impressed by, they're a big machine and big ships are slow to turn, but I was really impressed with their appetite for actually understanding what works and the community. And I think the creators that we worked with KFC were, initially a little nervous. They were like, oh, is my audience going to understand this? Are they going to think I'm selling out, which is like the number one fear of every creator. But I think we designed a campaign that worked in a way where it was so positively received. And the creators announced their partnerships with KFC, and the overwhelming response was, wow, that's so cool that like KFC wants to partner with you and that they get it. And I think that was for me such a success because the audience was excited about it. And it went from, okay, this brand's just, paying to slap a logo on a stream to, wow, okay, this brand actually gets gaming to the point where they know who you are and they know who our community is. And they're allowing you to create content that feels natural for you, but elevated because you're working with a brand that's able to make something happen that perhaps wouldn't be able to happen otherwise. And I think they're the kind of campaigns that are really great. And I think that's a challenge for brands getting into the space, because for a lot of brands, and I'm sure you and your team would know this better than anyone, they obviously have super strong brand images, often global brand images that they need to maintain. And so making sure that the messaging feels consistent with everything they're doing across the board is really important. But at the same time, it's a balance, because working with creators, the beauty of what you're doing is you're using their authenticity and you're able to tap into that authentic relationship with their audience. And so giving them a page of 15 talking points that they need to hit can take away from that magic a little bit. But it's a balance where you need to be able to have a relationship with the influencer or the streamer creator where they understand what you need to get across, but at the same time are able to do that in a way that's really valuable. But I think to me that's really exciting, because I think that's where management and agencies and people that aren't creators themselves but really understand that space have a lot of value to add, because they're able to help make those sort of conversations and partnerships happen. And I think that's obviously where I've had a great experience working with Ben and you guys. And it's people, there's a lot of conversations happening behind the scenes where people are calling and saying like, hey, how can we make this better? Like, how can we do this in a way that works really, really well?
Right. Well, no, I mean, and you hit it on the head. Basically, it really comes down to how can they, in an organic, authentic way, integrate into what's happening with gaming. And so, if you think of someone like a KFC or like a restaurant or just let's say food. I remember growing up having LAN parties. Ordering food and making sure like we had something to eat while we're playing the games, so we could play the games as long as possible. Whether it's ordering pizza or something like KFC, and then so there's a natural way of integrating, and it just has to be done right. The brand has to embrace the gaming lifestyle and the programming that has made the influencer successful, and then figure out how to naturally integrate in there. But you said something interesting as well, where you said, having like 15 talking points can really, be somewhat distracting to the creative. Hard to, hit every single one. And what we've learned is, I won't go deep into this, but we call it the consensus triangle, where the brand and the creator, they reach a consensus. And when they do that, the audience ends up loving the content because it's done in a way that's very consistent to what the influencer has done in the past. But we also have data that shows that they engage with the brand more. There's a higher click-through rate and also a higher conversion rate. And usually how we do this is we make sure we only work with creators that are super passionate about the project. But then you also, instead of giving like 20 talking points, you give between like 4 to 6 talking points that you encourage the creator to go over in a very natural way that's natural to their voice. And if you want more guardrails, in addition to that, you don't give more talking points. What you do is you give a list of don'ts. So working with a variety of clients from beauty to gaming to entertainment like Disney or other companies, we've learned that there are brands out there that really want to protect their image. And instead of giving like a whole, page of what to do. It needs to be different than that. It has to be keep the talking points to a minimum that are hitting the key messages that are important for the brand that are going to put the brand in the positive light, but then have a list of don'ts. If there's certain things that can't happen in that content, let the creator know that, and they're going to be usually okay. And if they're not, they'll pass on the project.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I was having a conversation a few weeks ago with a guy called Ian Borthwick, who runs influencer marketing for SeatGeek. And he had, that's obviously a brand, and not every brand is at this point yet, although hopefully, fingers crossed, they will. They're obviously they have a very relaxed mindset, but they have an ongoing partnership with David Dobrik. And he was talking a lot how they really stripped back on the talking points. But he was saying, they have a relationship with a creator now where his audience can literally reel off the SeatGeek spiel. And it's funny, and it's become an inside joke with his audience. And I think that's where I think as soon as you're creating, you're able to tap into an inside joke with a creator and their audience, you've hit such a sweet spot because, that's the ultimate authenticity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. What drives you right now, Grace? Where do you want to take your business in the next couple of years?
Big question. I think what drives me is really the idea of building things and being at the forefront of an industry that I think is really, really exciting. I didn't grow up a gamer myself. So I came into this pretty green, but with a real enthusiasm, I think, and a hunger for growth. And it's been incredibly rewarding over the past 3 or 4 years to, be able to feel as though you're able to develop a really high level of knowledge about an industry and develop really close relationships with people that are incredibly creative and some of the best at what they do. And I think my goal is hopefully to be able to help progress that in the wider industry space as well. And so I think making sure that more people are understanding gaming, more people are understanding the value of creators, and for a lot of kids, YouTube's one of the industries that people really, really want to get into now. And certainly in Australia, there was a study done where they asked teenagers what they want to do when they grow up, and the number one answer was be a YouTuber. Yeah. And I think that's really exciting. And while that's not going to be realistic for everyone, I'm really excited about all of the sort of ancillary careers that are coming up with YouTube, and people that can get into production and get into management and get into data and all of these things that are really going to be key for helping YouTubers take their channels to the next level. There's so many career paths within this industry now, and certainly within gaming, like as a sort of side thing, there's not a whole lot of women in gaming, and certainly not in the business side of things. And I think it's a really, really exciting space for that as well. There's so much progress to be made there. So I hope that, I'm able to sort of help that happen as well.
Yeah, that really is exciting. I think like 30 years ago or like 20 years ago or even like 15 years ago, it was a dream to think that you could potentially be in entertainment.
Yeah.
Whether it was like being an actor or a producer or a director. But today it's right in front of everyone. Everyone can follow their dreams or pursue their dreams.
And the barrier to entry is so low.
It is.
The barrier to entry is so low now. I mean, you can do it with a phone. You really don't need anything at all. And I think that's what I found really exciting, where, in my previous role, I was working at a big company, and the structure for progression was very structured. It was like, you do this for 2 years and then you'll get promoted and you'll earn this amount and you'll earn this for 2 years and then you'll do the same thing again. And there's nothing wrong with that. It absolutely works for a lot of people, but I think it's exciting. You have this Gen Z coming up and everyone wants everything now. And in some ways, maybe we need to exercise our patience a little more. But I think that's also great in a lot of ways, that people are just hungry. And I think YouTube and their modern entertainment system is a really great way for people to be able to tap into that with, no barriers to entry. You could be from anywhere in the world. You don't need a university degree to do it. If you come in and you've got a real hunger, then I think anyone can do it. And I see it. Like, I work with some 19-year-olds that want to become editors for the best YouTubers in the world, and they're just so there for it. And that's really motivating for me as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Grace, it's been wonderful to have you on. Oh, it looks like, hey, Derral, you made it back.
I don't know what happened. My laptop just died. But I got one question, though. It's an important question for Grace.
Okay, let's do it.
Grace, I've been waiting my whole life to ask you this. No, did you ever tell your brother that he's not going to amount to anything playing those video games? I need to hear the truth. It needs to come out. You need to confess.
We did not get along when we were growing up. And I think probably his video game habit really frustrated me and the rest of the family. God, I remember, in Australia, internet is not good.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like,
no, we've been there.
If he was on the internet, I couldn't be on the internet. And he was, on his Xbox. I have vivid memories of our father holding his Xbox over the pool in the backyard saying, Elliot, I will drop it.
I love it.
Now we're obviously super close. We work very closely together. He's one of my best friends, and our father is incredibly supportive. But I think that's funny. I mean, I think, sometimes I'll speak to parents of kids and that sort of thing, and they'll be like, oh, should I be letting my kid play video games all the time? And I think it's certainly a balance. But
you definitely have to have a balance,
I think it's exciting. Yeah.
Right. I had to ask that question because, like, I get on the Nintendo with my brothers and so on and so forth, and my mom would come down. You stop playing that Nintendo. You're not going to amount to anything, And it was really funny because, like, Nintendo became one of my clients, and I went to my mom and says, "Remember that you said I would never get anything out of doing playing the Nintendo? Well, look at this." but it's true. What I love about it is, and being a father of 5, it's just like your children are going to gravitate to what they're interested in, right? Mm-hmm. And you need to have moderation in all things. You can't just have them really obsessed with it and like really, really. Grateful for technology and where we're at. So, like, my second to last child, we have this kind of this policy in our house that you can't have a cell phone. You just can't. That's just kind of mom and dad's thing. But you can earn one if you learn how to play the piano and go to piano lessons and become proficient enough that you can actually read sheet music. And then, we're kind of religious, and so we have them learn hymns, as a way that they can do it. And it's going to take like good 6-7 years for them to do it. I'm like, okay, if they're really motivated, they can get it about the time that they really want to.
Yeah.
And
I think,
go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, but what the point that I was getting at is my second to youngest, he's like, I don't want a cell phone, Dad. And I'm like, okay, that's great. He goes, but I want a gaming computer. I want to build it. And I'm like, done, and then he just within a year he was able to pass off all those hymns and do all that other stuff, and he gets his gaming computer, gets it all set up, gets it all ready to go, starts downloading. He had to take it to the office because we have faster internet at the office, and just started downloading all his games like that. And now he's like, I want to stream. And I'm like, it's great. That's great. So we do that. And then he's like, oh yeah, can I have a SIM card? Because he wanted that phone. But
shaky.
But what I love, though, is like, I think we need to look at the rising generation, and they're going to see the world differently than what we see it. And even though that they want it now, just because, the older generation has done it in a certain way their whole life doesn't mean that that's completely acceptable and it's the best way of doing things. And I think that there's a new horizon of opportunities out there where people, if they have a desire and a passion, they just need to go online and figure it out. Like that's what YouTube's for. You can go on and learn anything that you want. And you can do it right now. I have a couple of my sons, they want to program. They're going right in and learning from YouTube how to program. And, one wants to be a video game developer. I'm like, we're all in on this. And so I think, when we look at everything that's going on, technology has disrupted the way that we actually educate, the way that we communicate, the way that we entertain. And we shouldn't look at it as a waste of time. What we need to do is take a step back and say, okay, how can we make this viable for them? Because if, you can teach them how to do math, just say, hey, if you want to program, you're going to need to know math. And, you start weaving all that stuff in there, which is amazing. And I think we're at a point right now that I know a lot of, parents are really worried about their kids playing it, but there's so many different things that they can do. But it might be, hey, well, why don't you start streaming, or why don't you start editing and getting them completely involved?
For sure.
So, but I do want to see your dad throwing that Xbox in a pool. Like, I need that on video. I need it right now.
We're gonna have Elliot on this podcast later on. We're gonna have to get his side of the story.
Oh, dude, like, seriously.
I think exactly right. I mean, I think it's about, there are lots of hobbies that could be unhealthy if you take them to the nth degree, but I think it's about encouraging kids to funnel them into a productive thing. And, a lot of the comments that the guys and girls that I represent get is, oh, you get to play games for a living. Like, you must be living the dream. And that's a funny way to look at it. And in many ways, of course, they are living the dream, but it's also a super simplistic way to look at it. And all of the creators I know that have been able to get to a level where they've truly been able to make it a career are not just playing games 24/7 in a mindless way. They're all incredibly data driven, and they're editors as much as they are editors as much as they are gamers in most senses of the world. They're thinking about their thumbnails. They're thinking about consistency. They're thinking about really how do they build a business. And in many ways, I think YouTube and streaming is a really productive way for kids to get into gaming, because yes, they get to play games for a bit, but they're thinking about, okay, how am I building a story with the video that I'm creating? How am I marketing this? How am I creating a thumbnail? How am I thinking about data? And why did that video do better than that video? And so I think it's about trying to encourage, healthy habits around it. And I love what you're saying about your kids and having to earn the mobile phone and that sort of thing. And I think my parents did a pretty good job of that too. I remember we would have to do chores to get pocket money, and then they took it possibly to the end, a little bit of an extreme degree for when we were like 10 years old. But I remember my mum saying, like, okay, you've earned $10, but if you don't take it now and you leave it with me, if you wait until your birthday, you'll have $15, and like try and teach the concept of interest to us at like 10 years old. But I think it's a good thing, and it encourages better habits later on.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like there's so much going on, and even though that these successful creators that have developed a following, they are the new venture capitalists. I mean, they are looking at opportunities to invest. They're investing with their own money, but they're also investing in all this other stuff. It's just like not a video game world. It's like an empire world. Like they're literally building all these empires around. It is just bananas, and I think that. It's very short-sighted. Just say, oh, it's just something that you just get entertained by. It's like literally the biggest industry, like you said, bigger than music and movies combined. And that's a pretty decent, industry if you look at it.
Yeah,
so.
But you're right. Like the creators that are doing it at the top level, and we were speaking earlier about like a Mr. Beast or a Kwebbelkop or a Preston or like Elliot even. They're not just YouTubers or gamers. Like these guys are businessmen, and they've built themselves empires, and they're thinking about how they can diversify their revenue and scale their teams. And they're really viewing what they've created as anyone that was building a business would create. And they're very, very passionate about that as well. Yes, they're passionate about content. They're passionate about games, but most of the ones that are at that top level, or I think that have the potential to really grow them into mini or not mini, but media little empires are ones that really have that passion for the the industry in a wider sense as well.
They are the future of studios and networks.
Yeah.
And you have, these companies have come in and tried creating their networks and where they can aggregate all these content creators. But the truth is, it's going to be happening from the content creators themselves, where those that can figure out how to scale what they're doing and how to replicate what they're doing, they're going to have massive media empires. And when working with brands or people that are interested in the space, that's one thing that you just have to remind them over and over, is that these are not actors. These are executives, visionaries, people that have done things that have been really difficult to accomplish, and they're not even close to being satisfied.
And I think 2020 has really highlighted that beyond anything. You've seen TV networks and production houses and movies really be stopped in their tracks this year. They haven't been able to produce content in the normal way that they would, and yet YouTubers' viewership's never been higher. And it's because they've created a model where, they're able to reach a huge audience, and they don't need a production team of 100, and they don't need to have separate editing teams. They've brought this in-house. They've created something super streamlined and super efficient. And I think it's really been a time where you've also seen a lot of brands pivot, and maybe money that they were putting into sporting or traditional advertisements that they haven't been able to this year has been redirected into YouTube and creators. And so I think hopefully, in what's been a pretty shocking year for many, I think it's been a silver lining. Definitely.
It's been a really weird year. It's been very strange, a lot of curveballs, but there's going to be, as you mentioned, a silver lining where there's going to be so much innovation that comes out of this. It's already happening. It's happening faster than it ever has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think most of the creators I know are trying to take it with both hands, and in many ways, the adaptability of their business models means that they can do that better than traditional media companies might be able to.
Well, Grace, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate your expertise and the knowledge, and it's been a fun discussion, even though that got kicked off. But
that was really me, Derral. I was getting tired of it.
I don't know how that worked, but it is what it is. But thank you so much. I do have one question. Are you a gamer now?
I'm a light gamer, but I think I much prefer the behind the scenes management stuff of it. So I'll stick to what I'm good at.
That's a game within itself too, just let you know. It's a different type of game.
And that's a game I love.
But I'm horrible at it. I love gaming. And whenever I can, I do it. But yeah, I am not good at it at all. But I am better than Derral, which is great.
Well, you can just watch a laser beam video and that can do it for you.
Well, thank you, Grace. Thank you, Ricky. And thank you all for watching, listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe, like, follow, whatever that button that is. And we'll see you guys on the next video.